No parent ever wants to think about what could happen if they have to part with their child. It's a tragic and terrifying situation.
Tonight, we are hearing from the parties involved in yesterday's deadly crash on I-70 that killed 6 and sent more than a dozen to the hospital.
These are the victims of that crash. On the upper row from left to right, you are seeing 18-year-old John Mosley, 15-year-old Caitlin Owens, and 18-year-old Jeffrey Worrell. The 3 Tuscarawas Valley High Schoolers were on that bus.
On the second row, 56-year-old Dave Canat and 45-year-old Shannon Wigfield.
And this is the 6th victim, 39-year-old Christy Gaynor. She and Wigfield were parent chaperones, and they were in a car with Kennett, who was a teacher. Thank you for joining us for NBC 411. I'm Kerry Charles.
I'm Colleen Marshall. The tragic news of that deadly crash spread quickly yesterday. The governor and other state leaders are expressing their thoughts and prayers while others saw all of this unfold up close. Kyle Beachy has the latest on the effort to support the victims.
Some of the first on scene were Red Cross volunteers, and while some victims are still recovering physically, all of them now faced with healing mentally and emotionally.
Anybody who was on that bus, has been traumatized, and we have to continue to keep them in our prayers, but also do everything that we can to wrap our arms around that community.
Governor Mike DeWine was nearly in tears as he talked about the lives lost and the children hurt in the I-70 crash Tuesday.
We've had other tragedies that involve children. I can tell the parents that I've, been where they've been where they are now.
His daughter was killed in a crash nearly 30 years ago. This crash touching many across Ohio, like David Graham, who drove to Tusky Valley in Northeast Ohio from his home in Newark to show support.
It's emotional. It's difficult.
The Red Cross was one of the first support groups on scene Tuesday morning, swiftly setting up a center at a nearby church to reunite kids from the bus with their parents.
It was a very traumatic situation, and the parents that were showing up were terrified, and we wanted them to feel safe and welcome as they came in to try to reconnect with their kids. You could see relief, you could see exhaustion, you could see everything wash over them, and it was powerful.
The Red Cross also sending an additional 30 units of blood to Mount Carmel. Tragedies like this one are why they do what they do.
We strive to provide a service that helps people on their worst days.
But questions about what happened are still unanswered, and State Highway Patrol investigators won't rush to judgment on how 3 teens on that bus and 3 adults close by all were killed.
I can't give you a specific timeline. The one thing that I do know is we want to make sure that we get it right.
Meantime, the Ohio School Bus Safety Working Group will convene again tomorrow. This group was put together by Governor DeWine after a fatal school bus crash near Springfield earlier this year. Local for you in Columbus, I'm Kyle Beachy, NBC4.
New at 11, we have an update on the condition of the driver of the charter bus. Don Wagler's wife, Ellen, released a statement to our sister station today, writing in part, "My husband is sitting up and eating but is not able to get up yet. He was a hero because the first thing he did after the crash was open the door for the students. A few minutes later, the door would not have opened anymore."
Well, today, the National Transportation Safety Board provided an update on the investigation into yesterday's crash. It says all vehicles involved were traveling westbound on I-70 when the chain reaction crash occurred. At least 3 vehicles caught fire. All drivers involved were licensed. There was an initial crash that took place on I-70 an hour before the deadly crash. The NTSB is trying to determine if the first crash contributed to the second. Jennifer Hamady, the chair of the safety board, says the weight of this situation is not lost as the investigation continues.
I'm a mom and I have a 15-year-old daughter. And so when I look at the vehicles or I look at the roadway conditions, you can't not think about the children that were involved, their families, the concern parents at home may have had.
It will take about a year to a year and a half before the NTSB can officially determine what happened. A preliminary report is expected in about 2 to 3 weeks.
NBC4 spoke with first responders who assisted in the aftermath of the I-70 crash, describing the scene as something they've never experienced before and hope to never see again. West Lickig Fire District was the first to respond. The Assistant Chief Joe Kraus says when they arrived, they were dealing with a fire, a hazmat situation, and a working extraction all at once. Kraus says his team went right onto the bus to save everyone they could. Meanwhile, EMS crews were transporting people to area hospitals as quickly as they could.
We take pride in our department on how much our crews train. They train for situations that they hope that they never have to deal with in regards to something like this. It was like wholeheartedly every single one of the responding companies that came to that incident on I-70 yesterday, they performed to the best of their abilities and very well.
We're told at one point there were nearly 100 emergency personnel at the scene of that crash.
NBC4 has been following this story since the moment it broke. Stay up to date with the NBC4 News app as we continue to learn more. Just search NBC4i in your app store.